Welcome, welcome. How is everybody? Welcome to
Morning.
our May mental health table talk topic. I'm sorry.
I noticed it's episode 33.
Table Talk 33?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what
Table
that
talk
means? We talk a lot.
33.
Means we're consistent.
Nice. Amazing.
I think today we have a really special guest. I think the community is gonna enjoy. Do you want to
Awesome.
get us going, Art, or do you want me to introduce her?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So, with May being Mental Health Month and that being the topic of our table talk, we thought that it would be fitting to introduce one of our newer team members and bring in a subject that is talked about a lot. But when we talk mental health, and substance abuse, sometimes I feel like they're talked about in two different tones, two different sentences, or two different subjects. And I think it's time that at the table talk we bring them together. And we have Tina Garcia, our substance abuse counselor. Tina, you could help me with your title a little better, and so I can do you the justice you deserve and all the hard work you've put in. You want to introduce yourself?
So my name is Tina. I'm from Los Securities, Kuya Companion out there up in the mountain. I am in recovery. My sobriety date is 1/6/17. I go to meetings. I participate in my recovery. I became a substance abuse counselor because I feel that it's important to share, and that hopefully that can just affect somebody or at least help give some information. That Me Too factor, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Awesome.
heard you
Absolutely.
mention that you wanted to put substance abuse and mental health to identify them together, and I was just thinking about that because they do go hand in hand, right? So a lot of times, some one of the old terminologies, and I remember we were just talking about this recently in another conversation about dual diagnosis. The other thing is like what the term that they're trying to use now is co-occurring, right? Because sometimes we have more than one thing going on, and so that's where the substance abuse has a lot to do with mental health. Like for myself, is what I believe because um, one, as people talk about that subject, sometimes it's like where we start to self medicate. But the other things is like in early recovery with myself, I noticed that some of those mental health issues that I didn't know that I had started to come up. And so it's important to unstigmatize it, to make it normalize it, right? To make it more okay to not feel all right sometimes, right? So
Yeah. Right, and that's basically, I think why people use, right, is we're so caught in in the thought and the idea that we got to be okay, we got to be happy, we got to feel good, and when life brings its obstacles and gets us down, we need something to pick us back up. A lot of times we don't have each other. That might be what the issue is our support system is broken, and when we talk about coping and dealing with life, we need some help, and I think that's where the substance comes in, and that feeling, getting that what do they say, getting your brain to feel good, and the substance, and you know all
that
the stuff.
endorphin rush,
There you go. There you go.
that
There
that
you go.
gratification, that instant gratification thing that goes on. So yeah, drugs play a
So
big role in that. So like how like when you're young or something, you try something, maybe it be ice cream, right? You have some ice cream, you taste it, it's like, oh, this is good. Get a little thing, something goes off in your brain. But what happens with drugs is that since they're so strong, they make them like maybe 10 times. I mean, I don't have the actual data like
right.
offhand, but like let's say it makes it 10 times stronger, right?
Mhm.
So all of a sudden you felt really good, right? And then what happens is you have this little crash, and that's what happens because you're only using a little bit at first, maybe. And so you get this little crash, but then the next time you need a little bit more. And honestly, it actually goes two ways with it too, because sometimes you're using substances to feel better, but sometimes you're using substances to hide stuff too, as well,
Mhm.
to ignore hurts or stuff like that as well. So it they
What
kind of
what
it's like depends on the situation. Everybody's situation is a little different. And so it's good to just understand what your personal situation is.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. What you just mentioned about like hiding things. I think some things that we understand in the mental health field and substance abuse world, again, let's bring those together, is when we start talking about our kids, we start talking about young kids, that are starting to deal with maybe broken homes, or starting to deal with, some early mental health issues, things like depression, things like maybe there's some learning disabilities, maybe there's some self-esteem issues, and we start seeing things like at 10, 11, 12, early ages. I think that's when kids are starting to find other avenues to make up for,
Mhm.
or give them answers, or to fill the void.
Fill the
um
void. Yeah.
Fill the void. Definitely when we're talking about, missing parents and broken homes. But when we talk about mental issues, a lot of times when we don't when kids aren't understanding what's going on, and they start getting handed, vapes, pens,
Mm.
weed, things like that, it's really feeling that uh um that emotion, maybe, or it's basically telling them I'm okay, I'm all right, because whatever's going on with me right now, I don't know, nobody around me knows. People are saying I'm getting in trouble, I'm messing up, I'm failing school, but
Right.
this is making me feel better. And I'm now, I got friends that I belong with that are using with me. I got things to look forward to, whether it's negative or positive.
Right.
You following? Are we following each other?
I
And
totally
It's a
meanwhile,
domino effect.
we have a mental health issue that's been going on, untreated depression. We got, maybe there's some learning disabilities that haven't been addressed. We need to get kids in, with the right counselors, with the right teachers, with the right programs. Instead, they're filling these voids with the substances, and I'm sorry if
You
I'm
know,
going
and
down
hiding
I'm
and,
going down a
and
rabbit
what you
I think
do
I'm going
is
down a rabbit hole. But are you following me at all? Are you kind of following me?
I'm following you totally. I'm like, damn,
Okay.
he should have just let it. That's a good lead right there.
Okay,
So,
right?
it does start with those things, and especially with the mental health issues. So first of all, when you first talk about something, first of all, I was thinking about abandonment issues, right? So there's a things that so I was able to read a book in my early recovery, and it's the Red Road to Wellbriety, right? And in that book, they talk about it's this Erickson's this guy. It's a therapist. Maybe one of the therapists can tell you about it. But it's this Erickson study, and what he talks about is that kids need a sense of certain things from certain age groups. So from like 0 to 18, they need a sense of security, right? So when children are being taken out of homes, they're not being raised by mothers, or they're not being raised by mothers that have good coping skills, right? So the first thing is they should have a sense of security. So like when you're holding them, that bond, and then they lose that, right? Then they should have a sense of discovery. Then they should have a sense of accomplishment. And then, there's more and more that goes on. But so what happens is, so when you're brought up in a broken home, right, you start off with maybe abandonment, and then depression, like you said. And then not just that, but everybody's trying to find themselves by a certain age, right? And then not to top it all off. So you not only do you have all this feeling stuff going on, but then the brain stuff. So like the learning disabilities are feeling behind, not feeling good enough, the shame, the guilt. And then on top of that, you have people that are raising you, are trying to probably do the best that they can, but they don't even have the coping skills because maybe their parents don't have them as well. Right. So they're not even be able to identify that they maybe have a learning disability, or can't even express their sadness, some of those things, right? They can't say, I'm sad because of this. Can't even really identify if they're trying to be told you're being raised like in a happy home, but you didn't have one of your parents, they're not even able to identify all these things because their brains haven't even fully developed yet. But yet there's nobody there to really, like you said, guide them, like other counselors, having the right people in there to care and to see it. Or sometimes the sad part is when we do see it and we do nothing about it. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
can see it, and when it's
Well,
happening, I mean, it's happening on my reservation right now.
well. Hold on. Sometimes we do nothing about it, or sometimes we shame them to oblivion. We shame them to like deep, dark anger, and you're stupid. Oh, you're dumb. You're
I
just
can't
like,
forget
oh,
it.
you're acting just like so and so, who's already been outlast, outcasted or so and something, So it's one thing to not address it or to ignore it, but another thing when we just put little kids down and we don't educate, we don't teach them. It's what, and we could discipline, but I think correcting and love and nourishment and that
And
kind of
even
stuff
just
is
that brief understanding of taking them aside and maybe explaining to them a little more in depth of, why are they feeling this way? Why are you acting like this?
right.
Just even taking 5 minutes to get a little more deeper conversation on what's really going on can like have huge benefits.
And that could even be that could be a story. That could
Yeah.
be like a family story. That could be a one time this happened. Sometimes we feel like we're like broken records, but you got to understand kids need that. I think that's what you're talking about, right, Tina?
And that's where right there you just hit it, where it's about where culture is prevention, right? So let's say before, and that's what's happened to our people is like it has been taken away and it's been broken. You have people practicing it now, but if you had that, like what you said, Marissa, the storytelling, right, are given the examples of things like this, the snake stories or the rabbit stories or whatever, and these people could get this, and that's what our community did. So when this gentleman Erickson did these studies and when he was watching the stuff, he lots of therapists and people go by it, but he learned this stuff from native people watching their culture. And what happened is that we would, instead of punishing somebody, we would embrace them and try to we would do things differently, like like you said, tell the stories are and not shame them or guilt them, and then or lift them up and help people to see where they fit in this in our tribe, right? Like, because everybody doesn't do everything. This person does this person does that, and we come together as a community, and that's where the culture would be prevention. But the thing is that since we haven't been practicing it, or we're trying to revitalize it, bring it back and bring it to right. And that's where and drugs I don't think was ever part of our culture, right? I was just explaining this to a client. I go, that wasn't, and honestly, I don't think it was lost what anybody really wanted for any of their cultures, right? No matter what race you be. But it definitely wasn't part of ours. And the thing was that we honored things so much before, and things were so sacred. So you had a sense of honor and belonging to that honor. And now it's like we don't have that. And then we don't praise people as much. And it doesn't even have to be like big praises. It could be minimal little things that fill that little bit of void, we're talking about that broken home. So like with myself, being able to be in recovery and being able to go to a place where I've learned what they call the 12 steps, where in the 12 traditions, it's like I wish they put this stuff in schools actually, right?
What's a
Because you
tall
could
step?
teach
I've never heard
people
of tall steps.
12 steps. So one,
Oh, 12. I'm sorry. I thought you said tall step. You said 12 step?
12
My,
steps.
my bad. Let me
12
tighten up
steps.
my ear. Sorry. I thought you said tall steps. I'm like, well, that's something new. 12 steps. Sorry.
The
Okay.
12
12.
steps, and then the
Yes.
traditions
Yeah.
where you look at things where over. So one where you said where we shame principles before personalities, right? What's the principle in this? How can we take this and help this person, regardless of the history of who I don't like in that family, or what they've done to me, or what somebody did to my grandmother, those type of things. We got to let that kind of stuff go so that we can help people and to embrace that and not say like it's like even on I'm gonna say something about our company on something they say something about your mental health problem. Why does it have to be a problem? Why can't it just be an issue?
Well,
That
well,
never
I
stays
think
there.
that goes back to stigma associated with mental health, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's why we're here. We're trying to break those barriers and say it's okay, right? We could come in to see Tina. We could come in to see Marissa, George. It's all right. It's not a form of weakness or shame to get help.
Right. I had a lady once tell me that. She goes, don't let something, especially like sensitive things, but like don't let something hold you back, you know? Like don't be ashamed of something, especially a trespass against you or something like that. Like I've learned in taking the peer support, the Me Too. So labels, we got to do away with the labels. Like, sure, I've done this, sure, I've done that, but not one thing defines me today, right? I'm Tina first. I've been depressed. I still have sad days. There's days when I don't want to get up out of bed. I mean, but the thing is, though, we all do have that, and it would be great to have somebody to talk to that you can say, like, hey, I've been through this. And sometimes we haven't all been through everything, but I can say, I understand this feeling, right? And that's where it's okay to learn to take care of yourself. And that's the thing is, we're so busy trying to please other people or do something for somebody else sometimes, and sometimes it's not always the right things, that we lose ourselves and stuff, and we don't take care of our own self. We don't have that self-care, and we don't take care of our mental health. And then we start to go crazy, right?
And I think that also affects our confidence in helping our kids. I'm not worthy enough. I made so many mistakes that I'm dealing with my own mental issues. I can't help them, and I think with that being said, that's right where we have, I think, the cross with the substance abuse recovery and mental health treatment, and they should go hand in hand, because a lot of that stuff that you're talking about, once you've dealt with those, you start getting into those 12 steps, and you're getting into recovery, and you get to those really, really hard times where you got to face yourself. You got to start apologizing. You got to start accepting things. I think a lot of that needs help. You need help doing that. And some people could do it alone. I know there's people that have done their recovery alone, but I think that's where, peer support, professional help can come into place, because a lot of those emotions and feelings are so strong, they could actually need, professional treatment. Some stuff may even take medication to get through, and that's where we start dealing with, you probably, there's a chance that somebody does have a mental illness. Somebody is dealing with serious clinical depression that needs medication, where you want to have the strength to recover, you want to have the resilience to get through it, because your family's strong and you've seen people do it. You might not be able to, especially if you're dealing with substance abuse recovery, to have to get onto another medication to deal with treatment. It's really difficult. But
and sometimes we think those people are so strong they did it on their own, and the truth is like, maybe they were able to get help, but they are ashamed to admit it.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
Or they keep it quiet because, like, you just don't want to admit those type of things, right?
Right.
I grew up with something like that. I remember my mother once, she was like, you don't let nobody see you cry. And like, so it was like, because it's a sign of weakness, or this is like from that sense of repression feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And being oppressed or whatever. And so I've always felt like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. But then there's a time it's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. You know what I mean? I want people to know, like, I've needed help before, and I got it, and I was able to come through it, is what it is. Because it's okay to need help. Everybody has needed some help at some point, no matter what. I don't care how strong they are. It doesn't matter. Somebody has helped somebody along the way, or learned something from somebody and got something from somebody, and that's okay. And it's okay.
Awesome. So one of the things you see with clients is also referring them to, outside agencies and treatment plans, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And what do you see as far as, issues you have with maybe referring people? How has that affected, our treatments as far as getting people help?
That's such a subject for me. Because, we refer out, so there's sometimes people need stuff. Sometimes they need mental health, right? I need to refer them out to a therapist for other issues, right? For issues that I'm not trained to handle. And then there's times where people they need detox, right? And then they need residential treatment. And unfortunately, even though there's help out there, it just seems like there's not enough. We always need more help, no matter what, right? And the truth is that as an addict is going to act like an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to necessarily just get it the first time. And so they're going to need to be reminded or helped along the way, and to know that it's okay if they stumble. Like, we're here there to help them just pick themselves up, right? And the other thing though is that this is a family disease, right? It's for the most part, there's those every circumstances, there's always something like that rare circumstance, but for the most part, it's a family disease. Even you can even have somebody in the family that is not an active addict, but they're dysfunctional as heck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is sometimes a person's trying to get clean, and even though they struggle and they stumble, then the family is always waiting for the other shoe to fall. So they're always like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Or they're even so used to that chaos, they don't even know how to function once the person's doing better. And it's like, but I'm doing what you want and you're still not happy. Like, what? And it's because
frustrating.
They need
It's almost
support.
like they're addicted to that chaos. Like they need the dysfunctional family member to give them a purpose in their own life.
Right.
Absolutely. I see it.
So it's hard to cut them off, to not give them that money. It's hard to say you're not, I mean, that's a really good point that you brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Really powerful point.
I got a question for you, Miss Tina. How do you help somebody, I guess, because we always get this, that they have to be ready, right? But how do you help somebody that doesn't want the help?
You just give them information a little bit at a time. Be supportive, be that walk in recovery. So, I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has their own thing. You know, one of the main things I see with people is like in recovery, when you talk about a spirituality, right? A higher power. Unfortunately, some of us, when we come to the rooms, we have a hard time with God. I want to just put it out there. And that's the thing is though, so sometimes for some people that works, and there's some people it doesn't. But it's like being that example no matter what. No matter what. Like, I mean, we're all human and whatever, but you got to be that example for when they are ready. And maybe still give them a little bit of information, and always be supportive no matter what, because and to not bash and put your principles on anyone, because sometimes like people think just because you're native, you all of a sudden want to come into culture. And even though I believe culture is very, very important, you don't want to just force it on somebody right away.
Right.
Sometimes, because sometimes they've been hurt by their own family members. And so it takes a minute to get somebody where they need to be. So it's really more about really listening, and try not to treat honestly, like trying to treat your own family is hard. So it's good to have somebody else help you with that. But when somebody doesn't want it, sometimes it doesn't matter. If it's in the creator's time, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen no matter what, But sometimes it's hard for people to find that bottom. But it's just always keeping that door open, and really just not judging. Sometimes we forget, and because we want to fix people. And I've seen hardcore like AA Nazis, NA Nazis. Like, if you just do this, and I was like, well, if it were that simple, I mean, the whole world would be a better place, right?
And you just reminded me of something. How crucial is that time where they like, hey, I'm ready. And you're like, oh my God, we're ready. Let's go. Let's do it. And then they don't have a bed, or they're not answering, or they don't follow through, like the facility portion of it. So it's really like it's a process. I come to realize too.
Unfortunately, it is a process, and I think the more when you get involved with politics and funding, they make it so much harder sometimes, because it is, because there's this process and then this and that, and there's always HIPAA. Got to watch out for HIPAA. Got to watch out for HIPAA. Like, even a family member that cares so much, it's like, you know what I mean? It is that person that needs it and wants to have it. I wish it was really just, hey, we need a bed. There's a bed. Yeah. Nobody needs it. But unfortunately, it's not. The thing is, though, it is I wish you could just grab somebody, catch them, and then just walk them through whatever you need. For myself, I believe that I was walked through. They did for me. Oh my gosh, my life.
We have automatic lights here, guys.
My things for myself, I mean, I was ready. I was truly desperate. I mean, because I didn't want to go to prison. I didn't want to die, and I wanted to raise my kids. So I was truly desperate. Luckily for myself, I had been shown and knew that, right? I was in recovery before, and that's what happened is I had a lapse, and so I knew what it took, and so people did for me what I cannot do for myself, and and honestly, that's what we should be here at IHS. That's what we should be doing as best as we can, and I believe that we do try our best. But when we're calling places and they're just nowhere to put them, or funding, insurance is a problem sometimes. Documentation isn't done right. Sometimes somebody may want it in that moment with everything, their whole being, and then it's like, okay, but the normal process could be a couple weeks. Even out in the city, on the county waiting list, it could be weeks. That's the normal. It's like call every day. You have to call every day to check for a bed, but it's like it's the process.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard everywhere. It's hard everywhere.
So before we get into a couple more of help information, we have a comment. Can I post it?
Cute. How can you still plant a seed?
Absolutely. Right.
So we have a little bit more time left. Miss Tina, can you talk about I know you talked a lot of it right now, but can we go over ways to help somebody or get them to help?
Well, one, register here at the clinic, right? So it makes it easier if you're already in the system, but they're pretty good about getting them in the system. You got to call BH. You got to ask for the help. One, you got to ask for the help. Two is just, oh my gosh, I almost forgot what your question was. What can we do? We have lots of resources. We try the best we can. There are a few new resources coming out. There's always something new coming out. We strive to look for things all the time, right? And what we do is we're constantly working, engaging with people. But just when somebody wants help, just keep encouraging them to come back and not to give up that hope. Like no matter what, just don't give up that hope at all. So.
I feel hope is really strong when you're in that process and going through all these, hurdles and trying to get, treatment and clean. You definitely got to have that support system and offer that hope to these, these individuals.
And I heard something about hope, and something I really like, and it's the acronyms for hope would be hold on, pain ends. Try to tell people, like, just you're worthwhile, give it a chance. Why not, right? You get all those cliches in recovery, and it's like, why not? What's 90 days for the rest of your lives? If you do this for one whole year and you're still like nothing has changed for the better for you, like you can gladly have your misery back or whatever. You know what I mean?
I've never heard that, but that's such a great point.
You can get a refund.
It's waiting. Oh, it'll be there real quick.
It's waiting for you.
It's waiting.
We have another comment.
Try to relate somewhat. We have another comment. Try to relate.
Yep.
Definitely. I think that's why people with lived experiences are so impactful in the field.
I feel they should be like, one of our resources, like, hey, I have a peer support, on hand. Like, here's their number. Get
absolutely
information.
That's a great point. Great idea.
Peer supports are amazing. Mm-hmm. They do, because they can do things we can't, like, whereas I can't go to a meeting with somebody, the peer support can walk them through that, sit there with them. They don't have to follow certain guidelines that I maybe have to follow. Peer supports are absolutely amazing for people in early recovery.
Right.
Great point. Tina, you're awesome. You could check out our podcast, our What About Life podcast. You're going to join us on our podcast, right? We got you booked this month. So we got to work that contract out with her, but it's always great to hear you. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're really good for my soul. So I appreciate your heartfelt comments and your compassion to the field.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Enjoyed you guys.
And stay tuned for mental health awareness.
Yeah, if you want to hear more of Tina, check out our podcast. She's coming out. I think you're going to be with us in a couple of weeks on our podcast, probably like towards the middle of the month.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Great discussion. Thank you from Mario. Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you guys. That was an awesome conversation. So tune in for this next couple weeks. We have some table talks, podcasts. So thank you again, Tina.
Thank you, Miss Tina. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next and fourth Wednesday of the month.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oh my God.